Okay guys, so in this video I'm gonna go through task number 3 and task number 2 just to make sure that you all get how to do it, etc. And I'm gonna show you how I did it. But let's start with task number 3 and then move on to task number 2. If we take task number 3.1, we draw up the optimal marketing sales plan for Birdhouse, blah, 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 blah. And the way to solve it is, if you go into this appendix, is you line up the different products you have here. You have all of these, and then you select them and put them in to a priority list, meaning that you need one certain information in order to actually sort them, and that's the contribution margin per kilo. And the contribution margin per kilo is calculated by taking the scarcity. You need the scarcity, of course, and then you of course also need the normal contribution margin, and then you can calculate it. If we double click on this, you can see that F14 divided with G14, so total contribution margin divided with steel in this case. In this case, we see the priority list, meaning that the product that we made the most on selling is the, in this case, FH2. And that's the top priority then. So that's priority number 1, and then from that on. And if we put it down here, in the priority list, we can see that differential contribution in hours. We can see that FH2, FBA, FBB, FBC are the 4 products that we should focus on, and the use of steel that we have here. And you know, the capacity limit, the loft, the glass ceiling is 2,250. That's kind of where we are. That's kind of the maximum that we can think of. I just wanted to mark that yellow so that it would make sense. Anyway, afterwards, when we go back afterwards, we can see that the contribution, if we take the contribution of, okay, how much is that this gonna make us? We go back, we have the steel use here, and we have the contribution margin, and the contribution margin, let's move up a bit so that you can see it. The contribution margin is, in this case, total contribution margin, of course, contribution margin per kilo multiplied with the steel use will give us the contribution, and the total contribution here in this case with the ceiling of 2,250 will give us 487,875. That's kind of the total in this case. And then if we move down on and look at, there's also a case where you had to look at the with birth bath. And with bird bath, a difficult word for me. And again, we calculate as we did before with the same numbers, but the priority list will just change a bit because bird bath will have the highest contribution margin in this case, closing down on 280. That will of course be number 1. And that's of course, but we're also told that we have some additional cost of delivery and additional of the additional 500 kilo steel with birth bath. So the cost of delivery would be 110,000. In this case, we can see we need to figure out, okay, cost of delivery needs to be compared to additional contribution. And additional contribution, you might say, okay, how are we going to calculate this? We'll calculate it by taking the new contribution divided with minus the old contribution. And the new contribution is focused on here, where we take the new the use of steel in this case. With the 500 extra in steel, and we take the new contribution here, saying that because we need the 500 steel with the bird bath, so the use of steel is now not 2,000. It's not as it used to be. It's not 2,250, but it's instead 2,750. And the new contribution will then give us 627,875, as we also see here. And if we compare that to the to the previous, it's let me try to signal it here. If we compare that, additional contribution will be this. And then we see BirthBat, no additional still. If we don't use additional still, we just made the calculation here saying, okay, we have the priority list where we use, again, 2,250 in contribution margin in steel, and that will give us the contribution margin without BirthBat, with no additional steel, will give us this. And if we have additional steel, it's of course going to be the additional contribution here compared to this. Anyway, this was task number 3. If we go to task number 2, we have the investment case here, and we have a lot of information here. Many of you actually did this right. Some of you failed in this part, but let's just walk through it, because you have all this information here, and you have the discount rate and you have lifetime years. Typically what we've done in examples is we worked with 5 years. Now we work with 6 years plus the year 0. And in this case we see that a lot of things have changed, and the fact that what you actually need to do is you need to use, of course, the equation that we learned, etc., in order to calculate the net profit, the net present value. And the net present value in this case will be this. Some of this assignment is also judged upon your ability to actually explain what's happened. So it's not enough just always to calculate. So some words about what's happening and why it's happening. And then, of course, if there are a couple of mistakes in it, sometimes you take some points out. Sometimes all, sometimes not all. Anyway, it depends, of course. But as we see here in this case, the more and more you use this product, the less value it would take, even with a scrap value. But the whole issue in this case, if you see it, is the investment value in the beginning, because the investment value in the beginning is huge. And that's of course gonna affect the net present value towards the end. And because the yearly earnings is favorable, but they're not gigantic, they're not enormous, so therefore it of course affects them. Anyway, I hope that you liked this video. I hope it explains some of it. Let me know what you think. But watch this at home, and watch it with the løsningsvejledning, which I'm also going to upload to you. And take care.